David cleaned floors like he was brushing away his own pain. Every night, long after the office lights dimmed and laughter faded from the hallways, he stayed behind with his mop, bucket, and quiet sighs. He was in his late 40s, with salt and pepper hair and calloused palms that told the story of years spent doing honest work that no one noticed. Each evening, the sound of his mop swishing down the marble hallway echoed like a heartbeat in an otherwise empty building. It was peaceful, almost like therapy, until one night, an angry voice shattered that calm. "Can't you be quieter?" came the sharp tone from the lobby's old wooden bench. David looked up and saw her, an elderly woman wrapped in a faded cardigan, sitting with a scowl that could scare away even the kindest soul. She had piercing gray eyes and trembling hands that clutched a worn-out purse. "I'm sorry, ma'am," David said softly. "Didn't mean to disturb you." "Disturb me? You're making a racket in the middle of the night," she huffed. "Some of us are trying to think." David gave her a gentle nod. "I'll be careful." That was their first encounter. And it was not a pleasant one, but as the nights passed, he noticed her again and again. Always there, sitting alone after hours. Sometimes mumbling to herself. Sometimes staring at the lobby's big glass doors like she was waiting for someone who'd never come. David didn't know why she was there, but she seemed lonely. One evening, he decided to leave a cup of tea on the nearby table without saying a word. He didn't expect a thank you. He just walked away quietly. The next night, the cup was gone. But when she saw him, her glare had softened just a little. "You think tea fixes everything?" she muttered. "Not everything," David replied with a kind smile, "but it helps a long night feel shorter." She didn't answer, but she didn't scold him either. That was progress as days turned into weeks. The old woman, whose name he learned was Mrs. Caldwell, began waiting for him. Though she never admitted it, David could see it in the way her eyes lifted whenever she heard his mop squeak on the floor. She'd complain, he'd smile. She'd criticize, he'd listen. It became their routine, like two lonely souls orbiting the same silence. Sometimes she'd mutter about her daughter, how she was too busy, too successful, and too far gone to remember her mother. David never asked for details. He just listened. Then one cold evening, Mrs. Caldwell didn't show up. Her bench was empty. For the first time in months, David felt the absence like a missing heartbeat. He waited until his shift ended, and when she still didn't appear, he took the bus route she often mentioned. After asking around a bit, he found her small apartment. The landlord told him she'd been taken to the hospital after fainting in the hallway. The next day, David finished his shift early and walked to the city hospital. He found her lying in bed, hooked up to a drip, her face pale but still carrying that stubborn frown. "You followed me," she said weakly when she saw him. "You didn't come for tea," he said, smiling softly. "I got worried." For a moment, she didn't respond. Then her lips quivered, not in anger, but emotion. "You're a fool, you know that?" "Yeah," David chuckled. "But a consistent one." Something shifted that day. From then on, he began visiting her regularly. He'd bring flowers from the building lobby or read aloud from the newspaper. She'd grumble, but he knew she loved it, and one evening, when he was about to leave, she said quietly, "You remind me of my late husband. He used to sweep the porch every night even when I told him not to. Said it made the house look cared for." David smiled. "Then I'm honored to remind you of him." Tears filled her eyes, but she turned her face away. A week later, she was discharged and insisted on coming back to the building lobby, saying she felt more alive there. David didn't argue. He just made sure she had her tea ready every night. One evening, just as he was mopping near her usual spot, the elevator doors opened, and out stepped a woman in a sharp navy suit, holding her phone to her ear. She had the same gray eyes, but hers were focused, cold, and tired. "Mom," she gasped when she saw the old woman sitting there. "What are you doing here?" Mrs. Caldwell looked startled. "Julia?" The woman rushed forward, her heels clicking against the marble. "I've been looking for you. Why are you here again? You shouldn't be wandering around, this is dangerous." David froze. The resemblance was unmistakable. "I'm fine." Mrs. Caldwell snapped. "I like it here. It's quiet. And besides, I have company." Her daughter frowned and turned to David. "You work here?" "Yes, ma'am," David replied respectfully. "I just help around. Your mother and we talk sometimes." Her eyes softened slightly. "You take care of her?" David shrugged. "She takes care of me too, in her own way." Julia studied him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "You know, my mother used to own this building with my father. Now, I do." David blinked. "You own it?" "Yes," she said quietly. "I just finalized the paperwork last month." Mrs. Caldwell looked away, embarrassed. "See? I told you she's too busy running things to visit me." Julia's voice cracked. "Mom, I didn't know you were here every night. You never told me." "You never asked," her mother muttered. The silence between them was thick, heavy with years of distance and misunderstanding. David quietly stepped back, giving them space, but Julia stopped him. "Wait," she said softly. "Stay. Please." That night changed everything. Over the next few weeks, Julia began visiting more often, sometimes bringing dinner for both her mother and David. The three of them would sit in the lobby sharing food, laughter, and memories. One night, Julia looked at David and said, "You know, you've done more for my mother than I have in years. You saw her when I didn't. You cared when I couldn't." David shook his head. "She just needed someone to listen. That's all any of us need sometimes." Julia smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Maybe we all needed you more than you know." And for the first time in a long while, Mrs. Caldwell reached out her frail hand and placed it over David's. "Thank you," she whispered. The next morning, David walked into work expecting the usual cleaning routine, but instead, he was called to the office upstairs. Julia was waiting for him. "I've been thinking," she said. "You've been taking care of this place for years, haven't you?" "Yes, ma'am," he said nervously. "About 15. She smiled. "Then it's time you stopped being just a janitor. I'd like you to be the building's maintenance supervisor. Full-time salary. Benefits." David's eyes widened. "Ma'am. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Julia said gently. "You've earned it." Tears welled up in his eyes. He nodded, overwhelmed. "Thank you." When he went down that evening, Mrs. Caldwell was waiting on her bench, a proud little smile tugging at her lips. "Got promoted, didn't you?" she said with a wink. David laughed. "How'd you know?" "I raised that woman," she said proudly. "I can read her face from a mile away." They both laughed, and as the night settled over the city, the once empty lobby now felt full of warmth, forgiveness, and second chances. David kept mopping that floor every night, but now it wasn't just a job. It was a reminder that kindness doesn't need an audience. That sometimes, the smallest gestures can build bridges between hearts long broken, and in the quiet of that marble lobby, where an angry old woman once sat alone, laughter echoed once more.